you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell-Rappin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers. You don't have to go very far today in the world of entrepreneurship to hear AI this, AI that. And there's been billions of dollars that have moved towards AI in the world of business. And yet there was an interesting stat recently that said what we realized with all this AI is that we need to stay human. And so I'm super excited to bring our guest into the program today because she has got this balance right. How do we scale our businesses with great technology? And how do we do it without losing our humanness? So please give a very warm welcome today to our guest, Michelle Runge. Welcome to the show. Excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm super excited to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So the first thing is for business owners, particularly those that serve B2B, which is where you and I play most of our business day. Mm-hmm. How can we actually do this? Because the aspiration is hugely interesting, but we see it not working effectively. So what's your take on this? How do we actually win the game?
I think the 2025 was a year of a lot of lessons learned. Everybody went in 2025 thinking, hey, we're going to set up all these agents. We're just going to have everything run. We'll set it and forget it. It didn't work. AI is not there yet, in my opinion. And the way that I like to frame this for a lot of business owners is think of AI as your sous chef, okay? Mm-hmm. AI works best in conjunction with human creativity and capability. So if you think about a world-class chef in a restaurant, there's a sous chef, right? The chef heads up the visionary. He's the visionary or she. They create the recipes. They make the calls on the flavor. They build the relationships. And the sous chef executes, right? They follow the recipe with precision. They speed up the work and they handle the preparation. Think of AI as that sous chef, but you are always the one who's going to be in charge. And your voice, your judgment, your expertise, your experience is what is going to guide this amazing tool. And as long as you can do that, you're going to have a lot better success. Any of the content that you create is going to it's going to sound like your brand of human. And I have some things that I'm going to share today that can help people do that.
This is so important because I think we have lost sight that we're still the architect. We're still the person who must think before we can ask somebody else to implement it. And that was true whether you were using human labor or in the newer world, the AI bots that are becoming very prevalent and early adoption has been really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
We are still responsible for this. And without us at the table, without our creativity, without our brains at the power, we really, truly see what we've created, which is a whole bunch of hot mess that we're wondering, well, why is it broken? How does it fix? And so we're kind of going back to the drawing board, which I think is kind of refreshing because we brought our brains to the table. So There's a lot of mistakes we've made. What are some of the biggest AI mistakes we have experienced when implementing AI as you've seen it? Let's start with that first.
There's a whole list, but the one that I would say is the most prevalent is when people try to automate processes that are broken. So my soundbite here for everybody is don't automate what you can't articulate. AI only amplifies what you give it. So if your process is messy or broken, AI is going to make it messier at scale. So you need to fix the process first and then use AI to speed it up. It's just that simple. I can give an example of a company that I think did a really great job with this, if you like.
Sure, please.
Okay. There was a publishing company that had an employee, we'll just call her Sarah for the sake of this example, and her job was to create author bios and book descriptions. Simple, right? So she would send an email to the author, she would ask them for that, and it turned into this painful process because everybody came about it a little bit differently. Sometimes what they gave was incomplete or it just was really off-brand for what the publisher needed. So she ended up in these unbelievably long email threads, and she was spending about 35 hours a week just on this task. Her leadership sat down with her and they took a look at what the actual process was. They wanted to document what done right looked like, because at this point, she couldn't even really articulate it. So they went back to basics. What does a great author bio include? What makes a really compelling book description? And they had a ton of data that they could take a look at to see what are the elements that we need to include. So then once they defined that standard, they put together a standardized group of questions for the author intake process, and they deployed it using a custom GPT, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's something you can do with ChatGPT. It's essentially like a question and answer framework. And they gathered all the information. Now, once that foundation is in place, the AI could create the first draft of every bio and book description automatically. And at this point, Sarah's job shifted tremendously. She went from 35 hours a week for this down to just 3 hours a week. That's an 87% reduction in operational efficiency.
And every business would love that.
Oh, well, yes, absolutely. So all she had to do was refine and review. And this freed her up to focus on more valuable work. And this is what I think is like one of the best use cases for AI, because she was able to then focus on building strategic partnerships with the authors. The other ripple effect of this that I really love, and it's one of the reasons I like to tell this transformational story, is the publishing company began to scale. They began to add additional authors to their book of business because now they had the capacity to do it, and they didn't have to start adding additional people. So it was a win-win-win across authors, Sarah, and the company.
What's so important, guys, and I know you've heard this here for sure many times on Amplify Your Marketing Message, is that you must bring your brain to the table. What does success look like? What does our standard be modeled around? And this is the starting point. It's not the haphazard after. Do not let AI tell you this. I think that's really, I know I've seen it, but it's dangerous, because remember what a language learning model is. It's a people pleaser on steroids. So if you say, do this, and it will go, I give you the gold star, we can get off course. So I love in this example, we talked about, let's dial this back. What are our foundations? What do we see as hallmarks of success? What do we want to create? And then we can still synthesize the data fast, but we still are in control of what does the outcome look like. And to your point, is it on brand? Is it reflecting what we want to put into the marketplace? Because without that, you're losing the plot with your audience. And that will slow down for sure the yeses you get when people say, here, we want to partner with you. Here's my credit card. So what is another mistake that people often make in the world of AI? What have you seen?
So I think the four big ones really are, they don't want to start with documenting the process. You have to be crystal clear on what the process is. Get it out of your head and onto, a document, so that you can have the AI take a look and say, hey, you can actually ask the AI, here's my process. Is there anything missing? And it'll tell you if it needs something else in order to really execute the plan. So documenting first. The other thing I think that happens quite a bit is, especially if you do something right and you get a really good result from your first AI implementation, is they want to go and they want to just start putting AI into everything. And it really is best to start small. Pick one thing, one small thing, get a quick win instead of trying to boil the ocean overnight. And from there, you want to scale thoughtfully, grow what's working and pause what isn't. Not everything is going to work, and it's okay. These tools change weekly. So, just be willing to be flexible, because that's something else that's going to be really important. And then the last thing is the humans need to stay central. A human needs to stay in the loop to help with the decisions and let the AI assist. A lot of these AI tools, once you set it up, somebody needs to check in on it, just like an employee. Is it still doing what's expected? Sometimes if you're not feeding additional data, or it's not, they tend to get less and less accurate. So a human needs to stay in there the whole time. I talk about how 2025 is probably going to be the beginning of the time when most people will end up with AI teammates that they are managing. Okay, so these teammates will be doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, the repetitive things, but somebody still needs to make sure that they're staying on track. So those are probably the four biggest ones.
That last one I think is colossally important. And I had it, unfortunately, as a nightmare story in my network. A peer of mine relies heavily on AI to provide the services that she has sold. And when you are using AI, like if you're using social media, you're on a rented platform where the rules are changing and you don't get briefed Monday morning in the standing meeting around that. So she showed up one day with a multi-six-figure business and suddenly her product wasn't performing. And she went, wow, I've rented space and they've changed the rules. And we've all been through that social media. If you lose your social media, God, I've had so many calls. Christine, what do I do? You start again at the beginning. And they're all like, wow, because it does change and it does need to be edited and it does need to be reasoned with, which is it still what we want to create? Is it doing the job we intended? And I love, love, love that you're suggesting we are going to be managing the systems and saying, is it doing what we want? Like you would any other human if you're in a leadership official management role. Because she watched her business crater and it was a huge wake-up call, unfortunately very expensive. And I said, you just paid a lesson tax. You need to rethink about this and make the decision when you go in, to your point, start small. How much exposure do you want to have your business change when you are least expecting it? Because it is moving so fast. And programs we loved last week, we're not loving this week, but something new is coming. And if you're watching this currently, you're watching the world fall out of love to a degree of chat and in love with Claude. And I will tell you, that pattern will only accelerate. You've got to really watch your balance and risk exposure because it can have huge wins. But you also need to know there's no such thing as a risk-free win. Always have to be managing this.
And
I love those 4 things.
Yeah, risk is something that I'm so glad you mentioned that, Christine, because this is something that's really critical that I talk to clients about. It's very exciting to have all of these connectors, right? You can connect any of the AI tools to your email, to your calendar, to your Google Drive, and that's great for efficiency, but all of these connections also can create vulnerabilities in your business. These AI agents can be vulnerable to something that's called negative prompt injection. So if somebody out there who has bad intentions tries to talk, that AI into giving it your email address or your password, you just have to go in eyes wide open and really do your due diligence when you're doing this. We're in an age where information is king. And you want to guard your data and make sure to keep it safe. And everything comes with a little bit of risk, but you can still manage it.
Well, I remember a year ago, I was in an incredible event called the Marketer's Cruise. Guys, if you want to know about the Marketer's Cruise, come ask me about it. You should be in that room with me. But I was sitting with somebody who unfortunately that week, honestly, had been hostile taken over as part of a co-owned business in a AI direction because there was a friction of principle. So he found himself ejected and he said, we have the capabilities. The question we're asking is, should we? And our leadership is not aligned and I just lost my job because of it. And so this is really important where you set your true north.
Yeah.
What do we want? What is our values? What is our principles? What is our risk tolerance? And we have to check this because I think it will also evolve like the AI is evolving and different people will have different appetites. You always need to bring yourself and your brain to the table and check in with, am I okay? And am I doing the greatest good for everybody? Recognizing, as you've heard me say this, leadership is not a popularity contest.
No.
There will be lots of times you're not applauded, and it is okay to recognize that your role is about the survivability of you, your business, your clients, and sometimes that means, I heard you say it, you pull the plug, you take a course correction, and you take a pause. So I love still that I think we can manage the risk and that we can still bring in our brain and our thinking power. How and where do we start as a small business to figure out, I like this, where do we start for us in early adoption to that small piece you're suggesting we begin with?
Yeah, I love that you already touched on one of the points that I was going to talk about at this point, which was, instead of asking the question, can AI do this? Because it can do just about anything. The better question is, should AI be doing this? Or is this something where a human needs to do it? So one of the most simplified frameworks that I've heard about is one that's called the C5 framework. And this was created by my mentor, Alicia Little. And essentially, it's 5 lenses for looking at your business and trying to figure out where AI genuinely makes sense versus where your human expertise has to stay. So you start with cutting costs, right? That's the first C. A lot of times, this is going to be your quickest way to some ROI if it's cutting costs for a repetitive process. Customer experience is another one. A lot of those FAQs is a great place to start. Competitive advantage, knowing what's going on in your market with your competitors. Creativity is the 4th one, and that's not just marketing. That's giving yourself time to be able to think about strategic long-term planning. And then the last C is colleagues or team efficiency. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Just might give you one example. There was a marketing firm that was spending about $1,500 a month on stock photos for their client campaigns. And they decided to introduce AI image generation. And they used tools like Midjourney and Ideogram. Now, that transition reduced their monthly cost from $1,500 to $200. That's over a savings of over $15,000 a year. That is not nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, their clients were actually really thrilled because the marketing team now could create images that were exactly what was needed. They didn't have to try and find a stock photo that was close enough. And they didn't have to pour through stock photos or pay too much and take the loss just because it was the best photo. But here's what's cool that stayed human with them. They still chose which images actually fit the brand. They approved all of the final selections and they maintained the creative vision. And the AI handled the execution for creating the images. The humans kept that creative strategy. So that's one example. There's other examples that I can give, but I want to be conscious of our time here too.
Well, and I think this is interesting. I know when I have played, and again, we have to really think about the questions we ask, the vision we see, and check its interpretation. Because we all think we're amazing communicators, truthfully. So we think we're communicating awesome, even with a human, never mind. We think we're awesome talking with an AI who says, you're awesome. But we're not actually great at this. Stats would say 70% of us are actually really could use improvement in our communication. And I know when I played with that creative element in the graphics, I said, I've just gone, it's really not right. And that's not due to the AI not being capable. It's been through what prompting I am giving. And what I love is using stuff that you don't contort yourself around, that's genuinely authentic to fuel it. So you can say, here's what I liked, here's what I did. And you mentioned earlier, take a process and use things to create frameworks. Sometimes one of our biggest challenges, I don't know what my framework is. I don't know what my style is. I don't know how to do this. Because if you've not been through the marketing engine, you're not a marketer. Right. You don't have the language that the AI might be expecting. But you can say, here's 7 phone calls in this example, pull from that, my framework. Here's all the images that aesthetically I have in my phone, pull from that and tell me what you're interpreting. And I think one of the most important prompts to check the logic of your AI is tell me what you're seeing. And then you say, surprisingly, yes, that's right. Or wow, I didn't know that's how it was being interpreted. And it can be that fine tuning. So we love the savings. We love that idea, but guys, it does mean you commit to being coached, to asking those questions. And you cannot excuse the human. So if your dream was that this will all operate without humans, just imagine, yes, your business can be enduring, but if you disappeared, it falls apart because you're leading it. Right. There's still a risk to that. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're the face of the business. I love what you were just saying about interacting with the AI and asking it a question. What do you see? Another question that I've found is unbelievably helpful in a lot of instances is asking, what questions do you have for me? Like, what information do you need from me to fill in the blank of what you're asking it to do? It always has really good questions. Most of the time, they're contextual. It's asking for context or it's asking for intent. What are you going to use this for? You trying to get, what's the end goal here? And once you give it the context and once you start asking those questions, you are truly inviting it to be a thought partner. It sounds weird, but to your point, they see patterns, they see trends, and they're sharp. I do this with Claude a lot, and Claude has pointed out things that I'm like, okay, I guess so. I didn't really think about that, but it's an amazing experience.
It is, and it's an interactive one that's evolutionary, guys. So this is also like how you evolve. The systems and the tech behind it is evolving, but also its interpretation is evolving. So always bring yourself to the conversation. Mm-hmm. This is going to be the key to creating this scalability, this improvement in the ROI, and mm-hmm. what's really going to be clear is still the human director, architect,
correct,
thought person, and it needs to be true. And that's a very human gut response. Because I always say when people create content, they come to me and said, this is what the market says it needs. That's what the AI told me it is. I said, it also told that to 100 million other people. What's your lens in this? Never forget you're going to get hired for your opinion, and your opinion is what is directing the AI. Your thought pattern is what's directing the AI. So please bring that and embrace it, because truthfully, without it, I will say it's shiny, it sounds good, but it's not true. And what does the world need right now? Truth, trust.
Exactly.
And that comes from thinking. So bring your brain to work today, my friends.
And I give my AI permission to push back. And to say when I'm off track and what it really thinks. I've already said, look, I don't need a cheerleader.
I don't need you to tell me I'm awesome every day.
Exactly.
That's awesome. It's really strong. It's really bold.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, don't be afraid to tell it what you really need. If you really need a thought partner to push back and tell you, like, Claude's really good at telling me when I'm spinning or I'm overthinking.
Good.
That's awesome. It helps. It helps a lot.
It helps you course correct fast. I love this. So I always want to ask my guests this, because everyone builds their business differently. But what's working right now for you to amplify your message, get in front of more of the right people who are saying, tell me more about your services? What's working right now?
So what I do essentially is I help mostly B2B, whether it's consultants, coaches, or service providers, figure out how they can implement AI for their specific needs. Every company is different. And one of the things that I'm working on doing more of, I've used AI quite a bit to help me create my footprint on LinkedIn, because this is where a lot of buyers are. I have used it to help me create my website. And I had it help me create a complete SEO strategy that I then checked with an SEO professional, like, are we on track? Because I don't know anything about this. I'm working now on my marketing. I've never been a marketer. I've been in sales and customer success. And so I'm moving slowly into that, and I need to get some systems in place. I'm generating leads, but I'm not doing as much with them as I should. So my next step that I'm in the process of doing right now is setting up some nurture campaigns and some automations that can help these leads continue on to the point where they're like, hey, Michelle, we need to talk. That's the latest.
This evolution. I love this evolution for two reasons, guys. Most of us have a strength and a skill set when we start. We all need to recognize how long we want to own it, but we always have to own the leadership of the questioning. And without systems, like most of us, we do an amazing job getting the lead. Let's do something amazing with the lead to support them to create the result. And that's really where 80% of people lose their momentum. So you're not alone, but we want to improve that. I love that you've already seen it and committed to it. So if people want to know how you're using AI and how you might be able to help them leverage AI more effectively in their business, how do people find you?
You can get me on LinkedIn, Michelle Runge, Runge. There's another Michelle Runge on there, and she's with a different company. My company name is AI Edge Consulting. I also have a website, which is aiedgeconsult.com. It's got all the details about the different things that I do. I do speaking, I do training, got some products out there. So yeah, those are probably the best places.
Guys, you want to be somebody who's in this game and sees their brain as integral to it. I think Michelle is an amazing resource. Go connect to her on LinkedIn as her preferred platform. Connect, learn, grow, implement, and go today and amplify your message. Your next client is out there. They are ready to spend. It's up to you to get found, you to make the bold ask, and you to help them get the result they seek. Thanks for being our guest today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Christine. It's been a pleasure.
That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell-Rappin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrappin.com/podcast to get a free resource on